More than 10 people killed and 5 others missing in southern Lebanon. And 17 Abu Sayyaf member jailed for kidnapping in Sipadan. Salam Malaysia Madani, I'm Brendan Nepal and you're watching World Today. The official logo and theme for the ASEAN-Malaysia Chairmanship in 2025 incorporates key elements including the 6 points of the flower stigma, which symbolizes the 6 core values of Malaysia Madani: sustainability, care and compassion, respect, innovation, prosperity and trust. Now these values serve as a foundation of Malaysia's vision as the chair of ASEAN next year. The logo and theme, launched by Foreign Minister Datuk Seri Mohamad Hassan yesterday, are inspired by Malaysia's national flower, the hibiscus Rosa sinensis or Bunga Raya. The design highlights the country's cultural richness while reflecting the unity and identity of the ASEAN community. The flower's 5 petals, which curve inward to embrace the ASEAN logo at the center, embodies Malaysia's commitment to fostering a peaceful, stable and prosperous ASEAN. The circular arrangement of the petals signifies ASEAN's collective resolve to achieve long-term sustainability across its member nations. Additionally, the use of the ASEAN logo at the heart of the design emphasizes the concept of ASEAN centrality, reinforcing the regional bloc's role in maintaining collective unity and collaboration. The logo's color scheme of blue, red, yellow and white reflects the main colors of the flags of all ASEAN member states, further highlighting the theme of unity. The logo was designed by Muhammad Khalis Shafiq, the winner of the ASEAN logo competition held earlier this year. More than 10 people were killed and 5 others were still missing following an Israeli airstrike on Beirut's southern suburb as rescue workers continued to search through the rubble near the Rafiq al-Hariri hospital. The Israeli military said on Tuesday that their jets hit a Hezbollah target close to the Rafiq Hariri University Hospital in Beirut late on Monday. However, they claimed that they did not target the hospital and it was not affected by the strike. Man Khalil, head of municipality of Gobeiri, said all buildings across from Rafiq Hariri Hospital were targeted by what he calls a heavy airstrike.
اليوم هذا العدو عم يجرب يخضع اللبنانيين والمقاومة اللبنانية من خلال استهداف المدنيين، وهذا أكيد ما حيحقق له أي غاية من النوايا العدوانية على لبنان، لأنه المدنيين اليوم قلبا وقالبا إذا بدنا نقول بخط هذه المقاومة ومستعدين يمكن يتحملوا بعد أكثر طول ما أخوان على الجبهات عم بيحققوا هذه الانتصارات وعم بيحققوا هزائم بهذا العدو.
Dahiye is a district in Beirut's Hezbollah-dominated southern suburbs repeatedly hit in Israeli airstrikes. According to Lebanese authorities, Israel's campaign in Lebanon has displaced more than 1.2 million people multiple times. The war between Israel and Hamas has devastated the Palestinian economy and left nearly all of Gaza's population in poverty. United Nations Development Agency said the war has knocked quality of life indicators such as health and education of Gazans back to 1950s. Launching a study on the war's socio-economic impacts, the UNDP's Abdallah al-Dardari said the Gaza Strip and the Israeli-occupied West Bank was now 35% smaller than it was at the start of Israel's invasion of Gaza a year ago. Even under optimal conditions, with international aid remaining at current levels and flowing to Gaza and the West Bank unhindered, it would still take at least a decade for economic output to recover to pre-war levels.
غزة عادت في دليل التنمية البشرية Human Development Index عادت 69 سنة إلى الوراء، ودولة فلسطين ككل عادت إلى الوراء ب24 عاما. يعني كل منجزات التنمية في 24 سنة زالت، اختفت. ولذلك عندما نفكر بالتعافي في غزة، الموضوع ليس فقط نعيد بناء بعض المباني على ضخامة هذه المهمة. الموضوع هو إعادة تنمية شاملة لإعادة الاسترجاع بعض ما خسرناه في هذه الحرب الشرسة.
Schools, hospitals, and other essential infrastructure have been razed to the ground. Nearly 43,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza, and some 3.3 million Palestinians need urgent humanitarian assistance. The cost of repairing damaged infrastructure was expected to run to $18.5 billion, almost the entire annual economic output of the Palestinian territories in 2022. A Philippine court found 17 leaders and members of the Abu Sayyaf group guilty for their involvement in the kidnapping of 21 people and for holding them hostage in the province of Sulu in southern Philippines in April 2000. The victims were abducted from a resort in Sipadan Island and were taken by boat to the province of Sulu, about 955 kilometers south of capital Manila, where they were held captive for months. The hostages included nationals of the Philippines, Finland, France, Germany, Lebanon, Malaysia, and South Africa. These 17 accused were found guilty on 16 October of 21 counts of kidnapping and serious illegal detention with ransom. They all were sentenced to life imprisonment on each count. Two of those convicted, Hilarion del Rosario Santos III and Redendo Cain de Losa, are listed on the United Nations Security Council's sanctions list. Santos and de Losa were tagged by the Council in 2008 for their association with other terrorist organizations. The Department of Justice in a statement said that the kidnappers could not be charged with terrorism since the abductions happened in 2000, before the country had such applicable laws. The accused were ordered to pay the 21 victims over $5,000 for civil indemnity, moral, and exemplary damages. The United Kingdom on Tuesday began the early release of a second tranche of 1,000 prisoners, causing embarrassment for the government as convicts were seen being collected in luxury cars. A spokesman for Prime Minister Keir Starmer said he shared the public's anger at such scenes, but there was no choice to act due to serious prison overcrowding. The releases come as the government launches a review of sentencing to tackle the prison crisis. The review will consider options for tougher non-custodial punishments for some convicted criminals to ensure prison space is available to incarcerate dangerous offenders. They include nudge technology, watches or apps to encourage compliance with conditions imposed on offenders, as well as home detention curfews. The early release scheme has seen some so-called non-violent offenders who have complied with certain conditions released after serving 40% of their sentence instead of the usual 50%. Those excluded from early release include sex offenders and anyone convicted of serious violent offences serving 4 or more years. Others who are not eligible include prisoners convicted of stalking or non-fatal strangulation and suffocation. Former Justice Secretary David Gok, who is chairing the review, said the prison population, currently around 89,000, was rising by 4,500 each year, with 90% of those sentenced to custody being re-offenders.
But as I've said, we cannot...
Venezuelan Interior and Justice Minister said on Tuesday that former Industry and Oil Minister Pedro Tellechea had misused concessions and licensed money from PDVSA, the state-owned oil company. Authorities detained Tellechea on Monday along with his closest collaborators. In a statement, authorities said that Tellechea handed over part of state oil firm PDVSA to a company controlled by U.S. intelligence services. Tellechea had announced his resignation as industry minister in a social media post on Friday, citing health issues. In August, President Nicolas Maduro conducted a large-scale cabinet shake-up that moved Tellechea from the oil ministry to the industry ministry and handed the country's key oil brief to Vice President Delcy Rodriguez. Telajaya had been tasked with battling the state firm's endemic corruption and boosting its finances when he was appointed to head the company in January 2023. And 2 months later, his brief expanded to include the oil ministry. A corruption probe into PDVSA led to a string of major arrests in April, including former oil minister Tariq El-Aissami, who had once been one of Maduro's most influential officials. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un visited strategic missile bases and examined the readiness for action of strategic deterrence while calling the U.S. strategic nuclear capabilities as a threat. In the still photographs released by the official's news agency KCNA, Kim, accompanied by officials including Kim Jong-sik, the first Vice Department Director of the Central Committee of the ruling Workers' Party of Korea, was seen inspecting facilities of the missile bases. KCNA did not say when the visits took place. Kim was quoted as saying the U.S. strategic nuclear means pose an ever-increasing threat to North Korea's security environment, and long-term threats demand Pyongyang's thorough and strict counteraction posture of its nuclear forces. He also urged the modernization of the armed forces by giving priority to the strategic missile force in the future, calling it an important principle of the strategy for building the national defense. Still to come, 11 killed in Ugandan fuel truck explosion. Stay with us. A fuel truck ran out of control and exploded into flames near the Ugandan capital on Tuesday, killing 11 people, including 2 minors. The impoverished East African country has witnessed several similar disasters in recent years, as people rush to steal fuel from tankers involved in road accidents. The police statement said the tanker was traveling from Kampala to Gulu in northern Uganda, a journey of about 650 kilometers. It added the tragedy struck at 3 p.m. local time when the tanker overturned and caught fire. According to a witness, as the oil spills onto the road, people rushed to the truck and began taking fuel in cans. He added the driver had warned those nearby to run before the explosion occurred. 4 buildings housing 9 shops were destroyed in the blaze as property worth millions of Ugandan shillings was lost. The incident took place just days after a fuel tanker exploded in northern Nigeria on 15 October, killing more than 170 people. Mexican authorities have arrested the alleged murderer of a Catholic priest and prominent human rights defender whose killing triggered international condemnation. Father Marcelo Perez, 51, was shot dead on Sunday in southern state of Chiapas, which has been shaken by escalating gang-related violence. The Chiapas Public Prosecutor's Office identified the alleged material author of the crime as Edgar N., in line with the usual practice of not giving full names. It said it had used security camera footage, witness testimony, and other leads to identify the suspect. Perez's work on human rights had been recognized by international organizations. The Mexican office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights denounced the indigenous priest's murder and called for an exhaustive investigation. Hundreds of mourners attended a funeral for Perez in his hometown on Tuesday. Mexico has seen more than 450,000 murders since a controversial military anti-drug operation was launched in 2006. The former chief executive of the Abercrombie Fitch clothing empire, Mike Jeffries, has been arrested and charged with the trafficking of male models for sex parties around the world. Jeffries was seen leaving a Florida courthouse on Tuesday after he and 2 other defendants were ordered release on respective bonds of $10 million and $500,000 in separate hearings. The 16-count indictment was unveiled by federal prosecutors in Brooklyn, a decade after Jeffries left the retailer he built over 22 years into a popular clothing brand known for sexually charged marketing. The defendants include Jeffries, 80, his partner Matthew Smith, 61, and James Jacobson, 71. who allegedly recruited men for them. Each was charged with 1 count of sex trafficking and 15 counts of interstate prostitution related to 15 unnamed victims between 2008 and 2015. If convicted, they face possible life sentences and mandatory minimum 15-year prison terms for the sex trafficking charges. They face up to 20 years in prison for the interstate prostitution charges.
70% of Cuba's population has power again as the island recovers from a nationwide blackout and a hurricane that left 7 people dead. The lights went out across the communist-run country on Friday after the collapse of the island's largest power plant crippled the entire power grid.
The situation was complicated by the passage of Hurricane Oscar, which struck Cuba on Sunday as a Category 1 storm. The Energy Ministry said on X that it was working to restore service to more people.
Todo ha sido bastante difícil por la situación que se nos ha presentado, pero bueno, poco a poco lo hemos ido superando, de poquito en poquito. Ya le estamos brindando lo que es batido, refresco frío, jugo frío, las maltas frías. Todo bien hasta el momento.
Todo ha vuelto a la normalidad, gracias a Dios, porque la verdad ha sido un infierno estar sin luz. A mucha gente se le echó a perder la comida, había gente que no tenía gas y gente que no tenía agua porque no había corriente. Mucha gente, yo tuve que botar comida, mi madre también tuvo que botar comida, porque si no había luz, obviamente los refrigeradores no funcionaban.
Electricity supplies were restored to much of the capital, home to 2 million people, but some residents outside Havana were still waiting. Authorities have suspended classes at many business activities until Wednesday, with only hospitals and essential services remaining operational. The island's electricity is generated by 8 aging coal-fired power plants, some of which have broken down or are under maintenance, as well as 7 floating plants leased from Turkish companies and a raft of diesel-powered generators.
Meanwhile, Cuba's eastern end was ravaged by tropical storm Oscar. Oscar, which first made landfall near Baraqua on Sunday as a Category 1 hurricane, was downgraded to a tropical storm, but not before wreaking havoc across much of eastern Cuba, knocking down power lines, triggering mudslides, and flooding rivers.
Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel said at least 6 people were killed during the weather event. According to his deputy, Inés Maria Chapman, so far 6,000 people were affected and the numbers are expected to rise further. Oscar lashed Cuba's eastern end, and most damages were reported in the Guantanamo province, with the San Antonio del Sur and Imias municipalities recording historic flooding levels. Rescue operations and damage assessments are still ongoing on the Caribbean island that has struggled with power outages and was already suffering from severe shortages of food, fuel, and medicine.
And in sports, Gwangju ends JDT's undefeated record in AFC Champions League Elite. Stay tuned.
Melaksanakan misi mempertahan maruah, mencipta secara setiap pertemuan takkan jenta dengan asalkan membuat kedua terus tegakkan satu perjuangan, satu suara akan yang direncana di dada dalam memburu takkan keaduan kekuatan bicara.
Starting off our sports segment this afternoon, the national junior squad's dream of winning their first match in the Sultan of Johor Cup SOJC International Hockey Championship was dashed after losing 4-2 to India in their third fixture at the Johor Hockey Stadium last night. The defeat was the third in a row for the host country after having lost to New Zealand in the first match on Saturday and to Japan on Sunday.
The first quarter saw both teams exchange attacks and the Young Tigers managed to break the deadlock when they scored the first goal in the 8 minutes, a field goal by Muhammad Danish Aiman. A minute later, eyewitness warrants Chargers continued to create chances and scored the second goal of the night through a penalty corner in the 9th minute by Haris Osman. However, 2 minutes later, India managed to reduce the deficit through Sharda Nan Tiwari's penalty corner strike. That opening goal seemed to have provided the much-needed tonic for the Indian squad, as 2 minutes later, Arshdeep Singh made it to all through a field goal. Inspired further by the equaliser, India continued to raid the Malaysian half and Talim Priyobarta made it 3-2 in favour of the visitors through another field goal, and before the Young Tigers could recover from the setback, Rohit added the fourth a minute later from a penalty corner strike.
Now on to football. Johor Darul Ta'zim JDT undefeated record in the 2024-25 AFC Champions League Elite or ACLE ended when they lost 3-1 to the South Korean side Gwangju yesterday.
In the match held at Yongin Mirror Stadium, Gwangju started strong, drawing first blood in the 3rd minute through winger Jasir Asani. Jasir further punished JDT just 3 minutes later by cleverly stealing the ball from defender Feroz Baharuddin, gifting his team their second goal. However, Feroz made amends when he headed in a corner from Juan Muniz in the 27th minute. Jasir again proved to be a thorn to JDT, providing the assist for Hyo Yul's header, which deflected off JDT's Park Jun-hyung into the net in the final minute for Gwangju's third goal. The Southern Tigers will next host South Korean side Ulsan Hyundai at Sultan Ibrahim Stadium, Iskandar Putri, Johor Bahru, for their 4th ACLE match on 5th November.
In European football, Real Madrid came from behind to beat Borussia Dortmund 5-2 in the Champions League earlier today, with Vinicius Jr. scoring a hat-trick. After a shock stumble at Lille in their previous European match, Madrid crushed Dortmund in a repeat of last season's final with a superb second-half display.
Vinicius struck 3 times in the second half as Madrid bounced back from 2 goals down to inflict further anguish on Dortmund. First half goals in quick succession by Daniel Malen and Jamie Gittens had given Dortmund a 2-goal lead at halftime. The 15 times champions duly struck back early in the second period via Antonio Rudiger and Vinicius before Lucas Vazquez sent Real ahead. Vinicius then completed his hat-trick inside the final 10 minutes to back home 3 precious points.
Meanwhile, Aston Villa are enjoying an excellent return to European football's top table after 41 years, as they won their 3rd match in 3 Champions League outings this term with a 2-0 victory against Bologna.
Villa last played in top tier of European football back in 1983, but Unai Emery's transformation of a sleeping giant knows no bounds, as they became the only side to register 3 wins from 3 Champions League games so far. John McGinn opened the scoring at Villa Park 10 minutes after the interval, and John Duran wrapped up the points in the 64th minute, sending Emery's side to the top of the league phase table on 9 points with 0 goals conceded. Bologna, by contrast, have just 1 point from their opening 3 games and 1 win in 11 games in all competitions this season. Fellow Premier League side Arsenal emerged 1-0 winners at home to Ukraine's Shakhtar Donetsk, thanks to an own goal from the visitors' goalkeeper. Dimitro Risnik could only grasp at thin air after Gabriel Martinelli had cut in from the left and smacked the ball against the near post before it rebounded back off the goalie and over the line. Leandro Trossard missed a penalty near the end, but Arsenal had already done enough to secure the second win of the tournament. Paris Saint-Germain's stuttering start in the season's Champions League continued as they were held to a 1-0 draw by PSV Eindhoven, leading coach Luis Enrique to admit he was worried about his team's prospects. The Dutch champions led through a Noah Lang strike just after the half-hour mark at the Parc des Princes, but Achraf Hakimi equalized early in the second half. PSG's frustration was summed up when they were awarded a penalty in injury time after a challenge on Marco Asensio, only for the decision to be overturned on review. The French Giants had 26 attempts on goal to their opponents' 8. They have now scored just twice in their last 5 matches in the Champions League. Elsewhere, El Bilal Toure snatched a last gasp 1-0 win for Stuttgart at Juventus, striking a stoppage time to give the Germans their first win in this season's revamped Champions League. Mali forward Toure lashed in the decisive goal in the second minute of added time, just as goalkeeper Mattia Perin thought he had saved a point for Juve. Stuttgart moved up to 16th place on 4 points with the win, while Juve on 6 points dropped out of the top 8 positions, which give direct qualification for the last 16.
And in tennis, Greek third seed Stefanos Tsitsipas overcame a gutsy Francisco Cerundolo to secure a 6-3, 6-7, 7-6 win and move into the second round of the Swiss indoors in Basel.
Tsitsipas might have thought he had the win, wrapped up at 4-2 in the second set, but squandered 2 break points as the Argentine fought his way back to win the set. Cerundolo then broke the 2-time Grand Slam finalist to lead 6-5 in the fourth. But Tsitsipas bounced back with a break of his own before prevailing in the tiebreak. The win is only Tsitsipas' second against a top 30 opponent this season and sees him advance to take on Botic van der Zandschulp of the Netherlands. Four-seed Dane Holger Rune also progressed to the second round, winning 89% first serve points to defeat Chile's Nicolas Hari, 6-4, 7-6. The 21-year-old Dane is yet to win a title in 2024, but kept alive some faint hope of reaching the ATP finals in Turin with the win. Next up for Rune is home hopeful Dominic Stricker, a 258th ranked wildcard who hit 14 aces on his way to a 6-4, 6-4 win over Dutchman Talon Griekspor.
76 minit tanpa henti.
76 minutes non-stop.
Transparent and concise. Paparan komprehensif, ringkas dan padat. Saksikan Kanta 744, 7.44 malam. Berita perdana 8 malam.
Malaysia Tonight, 8:30 p.m. And that's it from us this afternoon. A recap of our top stories today. More than 10 people killed and 5 others missing in heavy airstrikes by Israel on southern Lebanon. Do join us again this evening on 8:30 p.m. on saluran Berita RTM and TV1 for more. Till then, I'm Brother Paul. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Take care.